everyone, and welcome to my channel, Babbling Books. So this is going to be my wrap up for October. I read 8 books in October and they were all science fiction. I didn't plan it that way, it just kind of happened. This is going to be a really quick video because the first 4 books I read were from one series and the last 4 I read were from another series. And since I don't want to give any spoilers, I'm just going to give you a general idea of what each book series is about and what I thought of the writing and the characterization, the world building, whether or not the science was hard or soft, things like that. So book series 1 is the Helldiver Series by Nicholas Sansbury Smith. This series takes place about 300 years in the future. Earth is uninhabitable, and what is left of humanity is living in 2 skyships. Now, they're skyships, not spaceships. They're above the cloud line, but they're not in space. And the Helldivers, they are a group of people who get in the torpedo capsules, and they are dropped down to Earth. And they have to drop through electric storms, dense cloud coverage. It's very, very dangerous. And then once they get to Earth, they have to deal with extreme weather like frozen wastelands and radiation, acid rain. They can't breathe in the atmosphere. There are mutations of animal and plant life, and their job is to gather supplies, medicine to help radiation poisoning, fuel cells for the ships, whatever they can find that's of use. If you are a Helldiver, you receive perks. You can have access to more food, medical care, medicine, things like that. The world building is really pretty basic. The science is soft. So you know that the ship needs fuel cells, but you aren't told what they are composed of, how they function, anything like that. This author is very much one of those who, if he needs something, he invents it, gives it a name. And that's about as far as most of the science goes. I really liked the characters. I thought they were fleshed out really, really well. Each book does have its own plot. Sometimes it bleeds into the next book as well. And X, for instance, he's the main character. He's in his 40s. He has survived the most dives out of anyone, 96, I believe, when the book starts. And he is a grumpy, hard-drinking, cynical ass. But you end up really liking him despite all of that. And there are some politics, but it's not overly complicated. It's relatively straightforward politics. So that was not an aspect that I found to be just a complete drudgery to read through. It was fine. But the reason I stopped reading the series is because when book 4 ended, the series was heading in a direction that I really didn't have any interest in. So I stopped reading it, and I don't think I'm going to finish this series. I ended up giving it a 3-star rating. Some of the books I gave a 2.5 star. Some of the books I did give a 3.5 star to. So on average, it was a 3-star series. And then after that, I read The Old Man's War series by John Scalzi. So I read the first book a couple of years ago. And I picked up the second book, and I was really disappointed because the main character was a character from the first book, but one that I wasn't really interested in. On top of the fact there's also a brand new character introduced in the second book. So I probably made it about 30, 40 pages, and I just quit it because I was aggravated. And a couple of weeks ago, my husband said his coworker thought the second book was better. So I said, okay, fine, I'll give it a try. So I read the second book, and I actually really did enjoy it, just not as much as I enjoyed the first book. So what this series is about is it takes place in the future, and humans have conquered space travel to a certain extent. They have colonized on many, many planets. They have space stations and things like that. And if you are from Earth, there's only two ways to leave the planet and see the universe. Countries that are suffering from overpopulation, the main two countries, I believe, are India and China. They are allowed to apply for colonization, and they leave as colonists. So most of the colonists are of Chinese or Indian descent. The other way is to join the military, but that is only if you are from the United States. So when you become an elderly person, you can volunteer to join the military as a defender of Earth. And humans, of course, have come into contact with quite a few different alien species. They have trade agreements with them. They have wars with them. So that has become just a normal part of life. And if you volunteer to join the military, it's with the understanding that you will never be allowed to return to Earth or have contact with anyone on Earth. They will give you a new rejuvenated body. You'll be young again. And if you survive your 10-year stint in the military, defending Earth from any alien species that threatens it, you can either continue to stay in the military or you can volunteer to become a colonist on another planet. The main character in book 1 is John Perry. He is an elderly man who has lost his wife about a year prior. He and his wife had discussed doing this together, and he decides he's going to do it anyway. And I can't go into a lot of detail because it would just have so many spoilers if I did. What I will say is the author does a fantastic job fleshing out his characters. I think he did a great job with the world building. I think he does a great job with the science. I wouldn't necessarily say it's hard science, but it's definitely not soft science either, because the author does give you a background about how the tech works and how it was discovered and things like that. My only issue with this author is he does info dumps. So when you volunteer to join the military, like I said, you know you're going to be young again, but they don't know exactly what that means. So there's a lot of speculation on Earth about exactly how the military is going to make you young again. So when John Perry goes through that process, the author does an info dump and explains to you the discovery of this process, how the process works, and what it means when you're finished with it. The upsides and the downsides, the tech behind it, things like that. The same thing when John Perry learns how to use his high-tech weapon, how it was discovered, how it works, the upsides, the downsides, its restrictions, things like that. That is really prevalent through books 1 and 2, those info dumps. It's mildly irritating, but at the same time, it's nice to know that you have all of this information so that as you're reading, you understand what's happening. The plots, each book has its own plot, with the exception of book 4. Book 4 is a retelling of book 3 from a different character's viewpoint. So all the stuff that happens in book 3, you read about it again in book 4 through the eyes of a different character. There are a few times where that character is separated, so there are some new occurrences, but it wasn't enough to make the book interesting, at least as far as I was concerned. So book 1 was fantastic, book 2 was great, book 3 was pretty good, and book 4, as far as I was concerned, went pretty far downhill. I'm not going to finish this series, but I really do recommend books 1, 2, and 3. I thought they were fantastic. I thought they were well paced, so there was no moments of boredom. I really liked the characters. I liked learning about the other alien species. I liked learning about the different groups in the military. So they're like these special forces that you're introduced to, and they're like complete badasses that have gone through all of these processes that have made them faster and smarter and stronger and more capable, and they're better healers and things like that. So I really did enjoy this series, and I really, really do recommend it. And that's it. So let me know if you've read any of these, what you thought of them. I'm always looking for recommendations. Doesn't have to be sci-fi, but I do enjoy science fiction. So thank you for checking back in, and hopefully I'll see you guys here for my November wrap up. Bye.